Welcome back to Stank TV. Today we're going to be reviving these 2002 KYB RM250 forks and shock. Step 1 is taking out this dust seal, pry it with a screwdriver very lightly. Then there's going to be a little clip in there. You can use a little screwdriver or pick, grab that out. Now you're ready to just force it out. You're sliding the seals out of the end of the shaft and getting them past the bushings. One hard yank, usually at the end. Boom, it all comes apart. And then you can check out these bushings. Usually they wear on the inside, so they might look okay, but you can see that brass one's pretty worn there. You're going to slide those off. Pretty easy and simple. Then you're going to wipe down your fork, and you're just going to make sure everything is clean, including the bottom of it. You can see, look how nasty my paper towel is right here. It's important that you do a good job cleaning. Now, I just used a plastic bag. I didn't have the perfect size little tool for this, but you can always just get the tool. You want to easily put this dust seal on. As you can see, the direction with the springs going out, just like you took it off. Then that's going to be that little circlip. Now, here's the main oil seal that you want to be extremely careful with. Make sure you don't catch on any edges. Now, you're going to put that washer, one bushing, then the other bushing. Make sure you lube them up with a little bit of fork oil. And then you're just going to slide over the bushing over bushing and the tube over the inner tube. And you're going to use a seal pounder just like this, nice and gently, till that seal exposes that little spot for the circlip. And then you're going to slide that circlip in. I used a screwdriver to make sure it was seated. And then right there, you're making sure the dust seal is sitting where it's supposed to, all the way sealed. Now you're going to put in the inner cartridge. It's not really a cartridge, but it's an open chamber there with this little bottom valve on it. Make sure that's all clean. This kit came with a new crush washer, so of course I'm using it. The suspension has been redone by KB5 at one point. So once you get that back in, you're going to loosen off this top cap to grab the spring out of the way, pull out the rod that helps control your compression there. At this point, I put about 250 cc's of oil in there, and I do have to add more later on as I'm bleeding out the air, but you can see you grab this rod and you pull it up and down. I find that a quick force back down, once you start to get it to bleed, helps get that oil past and air bubbles past the valving, and it just takes a while. Take your time with it. I end up using a paper towel here to help my fingers because they were getting a little sore, but yeah, you just keep working it, and then eventually you're going to use a tool that measures how far down from the top of the fork tube you are. This tool right here, I set it for 100 milliliters as per the manual says for this bike. So then you're just sucking out the excess oil with the outer tube completely pushed down on the inner tube. So as far down as that tube will go, and you're measuring 100 milliliters off. Now you're going to pull this up and try to hold it while you set on the spring. I usually try to get the wrench in there as soon as possible that you're going to see right here. It just helps hold it. Don't forget that dampening rod that I already put in the middle, plus your little shim that sits on top of the spring right there. Spring guide, basically. Then you're going to put this cap on. None of this stuff has to be deathly tight. There probably are torque specs, but I've been doing this a long time, so I just kind of do it by feel. And there you go. Now we're done with this fork. We repeated the same thing with the other one, and now we're going to be working on the shock. First step is bleeding out that air. You might have to hold the Schrader valve while you push down on the top of the bladder cap there, and then you can see you slowly just work out this clip. Be nice. Don't dig up the body at all. Now you can see we got it pulled and how nasty this oil was. I'm not sure the interval on this, but it was definitely due to be changed. So we're going to get this looking nice, all cleaned out, and working properly with a brand new seal head as well. These were redone by KB5 as well. Here's a quick tip. Use a clothes hanger. You can use that to hold up the spacer, like you see right there that I just used a small punch to get out. But you can also use it to hold up the seal head and other stuff out of the way. Now, basically, I use that seal pusher to push down the head to get to that circlip. And now here I'm gently pulling it out. Oil's going to go everywhere, so make sure you put a rag there. And then I'm going to show you guys how nasty and cruddy this stuff was. And the main reason why we're going this far is to change out that seal head. So you can see it's crusty and nasty in there, real dirty, but it's no problem. That's kind of to be expected. These were done by KB5, so that nut was already ground down. I was able to get it right off, but you might have to grind it down. Here's a trick. Use a screwdriver or Torx, and you slide all the valving over that, so then you cannot lose it. And then here is that old seal head. A little bit of worn bushing, but that seal was just leaking. We're not going to be replacing the rubber because it's in relatively good shape, but Remember, you got to wipe down everything, make sure it's clean before you start to reassemble. And now we're going to be cleaning down all those parts like the shock body. You want to make sure you clean it good, make sure your solution is clean. You don't want to have a dirty solution that has a bunch of chunks of metal or dirt in it. You kind of want to make sure it's pretty clean, because this is going to be internal. Of course, yes, I will blow it out and clean it, but it's still better to start clean and fresh. So we're just cleaning all these parts like the spring holder, the bottom shock cap, which you'll see in a second. That's also part of the spring holder. Some of these were pretty nasty and cruddy, so I wanted to take my time and make sure it's all clean for the new owner. And there's that bottom shock cap that was pretty nasty. When you do take that off, just be nice and careful with a punch. You don't want to really mar up the little drainage holes in there. So here we go, putting on the rubber cone and dampener, and then we're gonna put down the cap. We are about to put on the seal head. You want to make sure you use a bag. They do make a tool for this. I just didn't have this specific size. Really be careful. Take your time and work it over slow. You do not want to nick this seal because you're going to have to do this all over again. And this is why using that, in this case, a Torx made it really easy. You can see it helps feed everything on. You're no confusion. You see clean the threads and use red Loctite. And then I don't torque these. You can look up the torque spec if you like. And then fill it with oil. Each side, you want to get enough oil in there so the bladder pushes oil out as you push it down. You might have to crush the bladder a little bit when you're putting the circlip in, and then put a little air in it to make sure that that whole cavity is filled. Now you're going to be on the other side, and you're going to see you slowly bleed the shock shaft up and down to force out those air bubbles. You can see them all coming up. Take your time with this till you don't feel any more, and don't go high enough where you're sucking more air down. See that little bleeder hole? Tip the shock a little bit so that that's the highest point so that you can get the most air out. Then you use that little shock tool to push it down the head while you put that circlip in. Then you see it's fully compressed. At that point, you'd also let out the air in that bladder. So now you put more air in the bladder. Just making sure that the shock fully extends back out. Gently tap on the cap for the bottom of the shock. Put your spring on. I use spring compressors. Makes it a little bit easier. You don't have to change your sag settings. And one of the last things you're going to have to do is put nitrogen in it, which, as you can see, at this point, I didn't really use many special tools, so you can get away with it and bring it to a shop and they'll fill it up with nitrogen.